This approach of simply dumping material where it will spread freely with ocean currents and with organisms, fish and birds and sea mammals and whales, and where it's essentially out of mind and out of the jurisdiction of those responsible, is a really antiquated, inappropriate, colonial kind of response to waste management.
The Japanese decision and its subsequent movement, it may take place at any time, it violates Japan's international obligation under the United Nations Convention on the law of the sea. Not only the two articles I referred to, but nearly all the articles in Part 12.
And we asked the New Zealand government to consider taking Japan to court to address this issue, given the fact that New Zealand, it says that it is a nuclear-free nation. So we were hoping we could have this conversation, but that was very quickly shut down.
Welcome everyone to Global Minds Roundtable on Japan's nuke water dumping plan. Some observers have suggested that governments should take the case to the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea against Japan. How do we proceed with such a lawsuit?
International litigation, like in domestic legal procedures, is the last resort, or is the last final protection in preserve peace and justice in international affairs, in international relations. It's an option, and the option contains, I think, there's a number of procedures. The first procedure is, of course, the binding compulsory legal procedure. At the second layer or level, advisory opinion, both ICJ and ITROS has procedures of advisory opinion. Third option in the legal process, we could perhaps think about the provisional measures. We bring the case to the tribunal and ask the court and tribunal to make a decision in terms of provisional measures. And the last but not least is for ITLOS, there is Annex 7 arbitral procedures. I think we could also take the issue or take the case to UN General Assembly. We could ask the Tribunal General Assembly to pass a resolution. I think it's still room and opportunity for neighboring countries, concerned parties, and the international community at large to think about and prepare ourselves in terms of collecting evidence. For instance, the loss of fishing ground in the open seas in the West Pacific, the Trans-Pacific, Northwest, Southwest Pacific, and the loss of fishing grounds in waters under national jurisdiction, and the loss of job opportunities by the fishing industry. The economic loss caused by exporting and catching sea products. I think 2 more years ago, I wrote a small article published in your paper, Global Times. I even made a concrete proposal. I called it BDI, Better Disposal Initiative. BDI, as I proposed, it's a regional and global roundtable mechanism. It's offered a different path, a political path, to address the issue of international cooperation, scientific disposal of this contaminated waters.
We asked the New Zealand government to consider taking Japan to court to address this issue, given the fact that New Zealand, It says that it is a nuclear-free nation. So we were hoping we could have this conversation, but that was very quickly shut down. And one of the reasons was because of the trust in the IAEA and in their standards. Keeping the dialogue open and thinking about how we can address this together is really important. We have a lot of international agreements. The Treaty of Rarotonga about how we want to care for the ocean, how we do not want to dump nuclear waste into the ocean. We have other options, and those are the ones that actually should be considered, not the dumping into the ocean.
Apart from filing a lawsuit, are there other options available?
On the evidence that TEPCO released so far publicly, 72% of the samples of water that had been treated by ALPS in one treatment round did not meet the regulatory standards. And some of them were higher than the regulatory limit. These discharges are projected to proceed over many decades. Even if the discharge begins, then that's not the end of the matter. That shouldn't be the end of. Preventive action would be much more desirable. One option, construction of large, purpose-built, seismically safe storage tanks. The tanks that are currently on the Fukushima site were very hastily assembled, are bolted together, not properly welded, have leaked repeatedly. So proper long-term, seismically safe, large tanks could be built. There's a second alternative, is that the treated water be used then in concrete for structural applications where it has little contact with people and the environment. And even if the concrete is subsequently broken up, the beta radiation, which is the main form of emission of radioactivity from tritium, doesn't penetrate very far. That's why it's damaging for people when you breathe it in or take it in food and water. It's not so much a problem when it's outside your body because it doesn't penetrate the skin. So alternatives exist, and they really should be explored, and for proper governance, should have been explored thoroughly in detail in terms of risks, costs and benefits for all of the feasible options well before this decision was made.